So basically, what happens is once we've dealt with the national income ka model, we basically we made two models here. We did the income and expenditure model, where we were looking for income is equals to aggregate expenditure. And the second model we did was the withdrawal and the injection model. So we did a withdrawal and injection model where we were looking for that the money going out should equals to money coming in. But before we even move into that, today's concept is multiplier. Concept क्या है? That let's assume that our current national income for the year 2025 is suppose $350 billion. That's our current GDP, let's assume. So the question becomes that if we want 2026 to end with, let's say, $400 billion, then in that case, how much money or how much injections do we need, change in injection, how much money should we inject in the economy such that the economy grows up to become a $400 billion economy? So government has to figure this out कि किस तरीके से करना है. So उसके लिए a concept of multiplier becomes important. How do we explain what multiplier is? In O levels, we do try to explain it, but we don't do a very good job in explaining the concept because it's much more bigger. अब जहां तक बात है operation of multiplier की, this is how it works. Imagine if in an economy, the government or a private sector company decides that we are going to invest, let's say, $200 million in a car manufacturing plant. Okay, that's the amount of money that, like, let's suppose Abhi Nishat Mill is deciding that they're going to invest $200 million in their new car, Jayco J5 or whatever. When this money is going to be invested, where will it be spent on? Let's assume that everything is local. So obviously they're going to spend 200 million in machines and building. They're going to spend on human resource of all kinds, meaning skilled, semi-skilled, not so skilled, all sorts of investments. They're going to do a lot of spending towards raw material and marketing and all of those things. So economy के अंदर, when we talk about the GDP, we're definitely going to see when they're going to spend $200 million in the GDP, that $200 million will be recorded as transactions in all of these aspects of that business. But once that spending is done, does that 200 million is gone? The thing what happens is that this 200 million is going to be broken down into small payments of all different types, like maybe like 50 million might go over here, another 50 million might go over here, another 100 million might go over here. Now, these companies who were providing the machines, who are the labor, who are giving them the steel and the cement and the plastic and all those raw materials, now they have this 200 million in hand. What will these people do with their companies, right? So what these people will do is obviously they're going to save some of that money. They're going to keep some of that money. Let's assume they're going to keep about 20% of the money that they've earned. So if I assume that machine companies got about 100 million, they're going to keep about 20 million, okay, for themselves. They're going to save it and they're going to spend about $80 million in the economy. They're going to spend it on what? Well, they're going to spend it on their labor and their new machines and their new expansions of factories and all, their new raw material, their kids' schooling, their house groceries. That money will be spent. Same goes with these people. These people will pay their rents, they're going to get groceries, pay for their kids, maybe buy a car. They're going to spend that money. So all that transaction that will be done will also be recorded. तो हमारी assumption ये है कि इस economy में every time people will earn X amount of money, they're going to keep 20% of that and they're going to spend 80% of that. So 200 ka 80% that will be the next year's spending will be somewhere around 160 because 20% of 200 is 40 million. The rest, 160 million, will be spent in the economy. Now that money is dispersed all over the economy, right? It's there with your grocery store, the milk shop, the hairdresser, the cinemas, the restaurant. The money is spread in the economy. And then that 160, which is gone everywhere, all of those people will keep about 20% of that money. They're going to save 20% of that money. So I'll take out 120, जो 160 की spending हुई है, they're going to keep 20% of that and they're going to spend 80% of it. तो क्या होगा? That 80% will become 128 million की another set of transactions will take place. Okay? So economy में another tier of uh, transactions will take place. Now the question is how quickly these transactions are taking place. Is it happening on a daily basis? Is it happening on a weekly basis, monthly basis? That's hard to predict. But all we know is that money is going to be continuously being spent in the economy. There is a withdrawal that is taking place. यही इस केस के अंदर जो 128 अभी और इकोनॉमी में स्पेंडिंग हुई है उसका अभी again 20% will be taken out. People will save that and then they're going to spend it on something or the other and the money is going to be rotating in the economy and GDP के अंदर add on होता जाएगा होता जाएगा होता जाएगा. If you notice, because of this 20% withdrawal, there is some sort of leakage happening at every transaction, and the amount which is going in consumption is becoming smaller. Slowly but gradually, it is getting smaller. The thing is, in exam, you're not going to have time to figure out कि ये eventually the 200 million which was injected in the economy at the end of the day उसने GDP के ऊपर overall कितना impact create किया है. So basically that's where multiplier and its formulas come into play that can help us identify that every dollar injection that you do how big of an impact does it create in the economy? Remember, जब हम अपना circular flow of income बनाते थे, we used to say that there is household and there are firms. Household provides factors of production to the firms and firms provide goods to the household. Household makes the payment as consumption and firms pay for the factors of production, which is income, right? and इकोनॉमी के अंदर पैसा would circulate. But sometimes you in the economy, people would save the money and take the money out of the system, right? So saving is a withdrawal, just like taxes is a withdrawal, just like government spending is a withdrawal. But then this money comes back into the system as injection, which keeps the economy growing. Sometimes it comes as government spending, sometimes it comes as exports. तो ये आपके सारे injections हैं, ये आपके सारे withdrawals हैं system में से. Sorry, it's not G, it is M. Okay. So basically, every time people save some money, the money goes out of the system and consumption becomes smaller. So withdrawals basically hurts your multiplier. Okay. And consumption basically helps your multiplier keep on happening, because when people spend the money, that money completely rotates in the economy continuously, right? So if you go to Murray, or, yeah, if you go to Murray and you take money from Karachi and you go and you spend there on hotels and maybe like local foods, what happens? So us Murray ki economy grows. And then those shopkeepers make transactions. That's more GDP. Whoever gets that money spends on something, that money stays in the economy. If people withdraws and they save the money, or they pay taxes, or they import, that money is no more in circulation, and that shrinks the multiplier. So over here, to finalize this concept, होता क्या है, मल्टीप्लायर के लिए हम यूज करते हैं के. मल्टीप्लायर का एक सिंपल फॉर्मूला है 1/1 - MPC, और 1/MPS. What is this MPC? Marginal propensity to consume and marginal propensity to save. What does that mean? That for every extra dollar that you've earned, how much are you consuming and how much are you saving? So in our example over here, we're saying that you're going to consume 80% of every dollar earned. So that means 1 minus 0.8, or 1 divided by 0.2, which gives you 5. What is this 5 telling us? It's a multiplier. This 5 is telling us that when you inject in the system, when you inject money through I or G or X, it goes through this whole chain of transactions, multiplier, and eventually it creates an impact on the national income. So in our case over here, if we inject 200 million in the system, it will go 5 times in X number of period of time, and it's going to create 1,000 million या $1 billion का impact on the economy. That's what it does. The greater the value of multiplier, greater the multiplication. The smaller the value of multiplier, the smaller the multiplication. So just to clear, in a country like Pakistan, usually what happens in developing country is that people pretty much spend most of the money that they earn. Let's say people spend zero point 0.9 of the dollar they earn. तो उस केस में मल्टीप्लायर क्या होगा, डेवलपिंग कंट्री का 1 divided by 0.9, which is 10. What does that mean? For every dollar spent, it's going to create an impact of 10 million. So if you inject 100, it will create 1,000 का impact. Because transactions में पैसे ज्यादा घूम रहे हैं. लेकिन डेवलप्ड इकोनॉमीज के अंदर देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ सेविंग. तो लेट्स से कि वहां पर सेविंग ज्यादा होने की वजह से एमपीसीज आर नॉट दैट हाई. लेट्स से पीपल कंज्यूम 0.5 of the money earned and they save 0.5 of the money. So their multiplier is just 2. So every $10 spent, yeah, injected into the system will only create 20 ka impact. So it's not such a big multiplier for them because they have a lot of savings and withdrawals. So in our question, which I posed right at the beginning, over here we're saying current economy stands at 350. We want the economy to grow to 400 billion. How much money should we inject? So before we can solve that, we need an information that what is the value of our multiplier? Okay? That if I do a certain injection, how many times will it grow? Multiplier निकालने के लिए I need to know the marginal propensity to consume in my economy. They have to give that information. So let's hold that thought for a minute and let's come to our diagrams, the model that we built last class के अंदर. I'll directly jump to the final model that we constructed in our lecture 3, which was हमने एक 45-degree line बनाई थी. That line is crucial. It helps us with the equilibrium. You're going to see आज मैं कुछ MCQs कराऊंगा जिसमें we're going to see that how important the role is for this. And then we used to draw एक aggregate expenditure की line. So let's suppose मेरा aggregate expenditure is here somewhere. Okay? This is my aggregate expenditure. And we have an equilibrium. And that equilibrium, income is equals to total expenditure. We have an equilibrium. ये कितने सेक्टर का इक्विलिब्रियम है? We don't know as of now because I haven't mentioned कि aggregate expenditure में कौन-कौन से components हैं C, I, G, X minus M के. So it's not complete as yet. फिर आपके पास दूसरी तरफ we have the withdrawals and the injections. तो हमें ये पता है कि कुछ withdrawals होती हैं, कुछ injections होती हैं. तो let's suppose if I say कि मेरी जो injections हैं वो ये है. Let me do a solid line here. Okay. So this is the investment that is coming into the system. Okay. And this is the withdrawal into the system. Equilibrium needs to be at the same level. So this is where it is precise. The withdrawals is equals to injections. And we have an equilibrium exactly at the same level जो ऊपर का diagram show कर रहा है. That's the beauty of perfection in these diagrams. तो ये हमारा equilibrium है. Now, based on ये कितना sector है, if this was two-sector economy, I would write C plus I. Okay, it's a two-sector economy. In a two-sector economy, we have consumers and we have producers. तो टू सेक्टर के अंदर इनकम शुड इक्वल्स टू C plus I. और नीचे विथड्रॉल और इंजेक्शंस के अंदर सेविंग्स इज द विथड्रॉल एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट इज द इंजेक्शन. तो सेविंग्स शुड इक्वल्स टू इन्वेस्टमेंट. ये टू सेक्टर की सिचुएशन होती है. But if we had a three-sector economy, closed three-sector, we would introduce government. So in a three-sector closed economy, income is equals to C plus I plus G होना चाहिए था. और नीचे we would withdrawal में हम taxation को include करते और government spending को as injection करते. तो savings plus tax should equals to investment plus government spending, and that would be three sector. फिर four sector के लिए, which is our final sector, four sector is an open economy because इसमें अब सारे factors आ जाते हैं. X minus M, now it's a four sector. Income is equals to C plus I plus G plus X minus M, and withdrawals or injections के अंदर we would include this. तो S plus T plus M should equals to I plus G plus X. And that's how my four sector economy would come to an equilibrium. अब इस सारी situation में what does multiplier का concept, how can we apply that? So let's assume, based on the question that I've posed, currently the economy stands at 350 billion. Let me place that right now the economy stands at 350 billion. So let me place that value. इस वक्त economy 350 billion के ऊपर है. That's where the economy right now is, 350 billion. Now they're saying we need an injection. अब ये injection, depending on how many sectors we're talking about. If it's a two sector, this injection could have been I. If it's a three sector, it could have been G also. It could have been I or G. And if it's a four sector, it could have been I, G, or X. So depending on the question, they'll tell you, okay, let's suppose export happened of this amount. That was the injection. Or government decided to spend this much in the economy. So we know these three are the injections. When injection will happen, CIG X minus M में IG और X आपका injection होता है. So what it really does is, it's going, if any kind of injection happens, that injection is going to make your line, ये consumption की जो line है, it's gonna make this line jump up. I'm jumping it up by 2 blocks. अगर आप vertically read करें, I have made it jump by 2 blocks. And let's say I'm saying the injection was investment. So because of the new investment, this is what has happened. My new aggregate expenditure is T plus I1 करो क्योंकि this is the new level of investment, plus G plus X minus M. So this investment basically caused my aggregate expenditure to jump up. Okay, perfect. If my injection is making that line jump, तो obviously injection की line को भी तो 2 block से मुझे jump करना पड़ेगा, showing a new level of injection with investment changed and the rest of the same thing as the same. मेरे डायग्राम के अंदर जितनी perfection होगी, बल्कि in fact, if my diagram has perfection, what's going to happen is my equilibrium is going to be exactly precise as ऊपर वाला diagram. So basically that's how it should show कि exactly same level के ऊपर, like if I draw the dotted lines, I can show कि मेरे दोनों डायग्राम के अंदर जो मेरा next equilibrium आया है, it's on exactly the same level. Let's assume for argument's sake, this new equilibrium that I have is 400 billion. Okay, it's at 400 billion dollar. तो सवाल ये बनता है, how much is this injection in numbers? We have to be very specific. यहाँ मैंने सिर्फ ये बोला कि 2 ब्लॉक से आया है, ये 2 ब्लॉक क्या नंबर रिप्रेजेंट करता है. So that is something we have to figure out. और जितनी भी calculations अभी होंगे, and you're going to see all the calculations that we're going to do is going to help us calculate that, and I'll help you out with that. Okay? So let's go a little into this diagram and let's figure out कि ये जो हमने blue line बनाई है consumption की, if you remember, इसमें consumption है plus all the other things. Consumption का एक equation था. Consumption का equation was A plus BY, where the B was the slope which was MPC. तो वो slope है क्या? Very easy to find. If I take 2 points and I can do run over rise, कि कितना change in consumption है when there is a change in income. So I can clearly see it's 1 over 4. Run and rise, I hope तुम्हें पता हो. Sorry, rise over run. Gradient का formula. Change in y-axis over change in x-axis, right? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So एक ब्लॉक ऊपर नीचे का चेंज हो रहा है, 4 ब्लॉक ऐसे हो रहे हैं, तो 1:4 is my gradient, which is 0.25. तो मेरे पास एमपीसी तो आ गया. अगर मेरे पास एमपीसी आ गया तो मेरे पास मल्टीप्लायर की वैल्यू निकल आई. What is the multiplier's value? Let's do it. MPC is 0.25. So K is equals to 1 divided by 1 minus 0.5, which gives me a multiplier of 1 divided by 0.75 gives me MPC 0.25 आ रहा है. So 1 divided by 0.75 gives me a multiplier of 1.33. Okay? That's the multiplier. So मेरा दूसरा equation is कितना इंजेक्शन करूंगा, जो मैं change in injection आएगा, that will go through the multiplier, will create an impact on national income. By the way, the formula is much more simple. The formula is K is equals to change in Y over change in injection. इसी को मैंने rearrange किया है basically. If I take this J over here, it becomes कितना injection times multiplier will tell you कितना national income. Over here, I know national income पे मुझे कितना बड़ा impact चाहिए. I want a 50 billion का impact. Million का, sorry. तो change in income I want is 50. Multiplier is 1.33. That will tell us कितनी injection करने की जरूरत है. So in our calculators, we're going to take 50 ka national income divided by 1.33 tells us that we need to inject about 37.5 round कर लेते हैं 37.6 billion. If we inject 37.6 billion in the economy, it will go through 1.33 ka multiplier and it will create 50 billion ka impact. Now over here, the multiplier is really bad. Why? Because consumption सिर्फ 0.25 हो रही है और withdraw जो हो रहा है वो 0.75 हो रहा है. The greater the value of MPC, the greater the impact of the multiplier that we can see. And that's what we're going to see. Multiplier जो टू सेक्टर के अंदर हमने बात की, I said multiplier का एक formula was K is equals to 1 divided by 1 minus MPC or 1 divided by MPS, the withdrawal. अब विड्रॉ में तो सेविंग्स भी होते हैं, टैक्सेस भी होते हैं और गवर्नमेंट भी होती है. इफ इट्स ओनली एमपीएस, दैट मीन्स इट्स अ टू सेक्टर. ओके, थ्री सेक्टर का मल्टीप्लायर का फॉर्मूला बिकम्स डिफरेंट. थ्री सेक्टर का एक तो है 1 डिवाइड बाय 1 माइनस एमपीसी और 1 divided by MPS plus MPT. Yani, every time you earn a dollar, some of that dollar gets saved, some goes in taxes, some goes in consumption. We want to put the withdrawals together because withdrawal dilutes your multiplier. In a four-sector economy, your multiplier K is equals to 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. तो ये तो MPC will keep the money in rotation, लेकिन the withdrawals are For every dollar you earn, some is consumed, some is saved, some goes in taxes, and some goes to buy imported goods. तो ये आपके मल्टीप्लायर के फॉर्मूलाज हो जाते हैं. डिपेंडिंग ऑन द क्वेश्चन, वी आर गोइंग टू अप्लाई द फॉर्मूला. बेसिकली सिर्फ और सिर्फ दो फॉर्मूलाज अप्लाई होते हैं इसमें है, बट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट, which is in our diagrams, how much injections do we need to put in to create कितना बड़ा national income पे impact. And that will be determined by the gradient, which is MPC. Same goes over here. कितना इकोनॉमी में इंजेक्शन का जरूरत है, उससे नेशनल इनकम पे कितना बड़ा इम्पैक्ट आएगा, विल बी डिपेंडेंट ऑन आपके विड्रॉल्स का ग्रेडियंट, विच इज एमपीएस, एमपीटी, एमपीएम, डिपेंडिंग ऑन द सेक्टर ऑफ द इकोनॉमी. So that's what we have to understand. Plenty of question comes in. They can give you, I think probably if we get a chance, we will do a question or two where we will explain कि इसके ऊपर, इस टॉपिक के ऊपर किस किस्म के क्वेश्चन आ सकते हैं. Now that we've sort of dealt with the concepts here, हम आएंगे थोड़े से मल्टीप्लायर के एमसीक्यूज को जरा देखते हैं. और ये जो मैंने सारी चीज कराई है, लेट्स ट्राई टू bring it to perspective. If you have any questions, please ask me.
अरे
I'll
क्या
try
ये
and
लॉन्ग क्वेश्चन में आ सकते हैं
बिल्कुल
इसके
आते हैं
सवाल?
लॉन्ग क्वेश्चन में. एब्सोल्युटली लॉन्ग क्वेश्चन आ सकते हैं इसके अंदर. एंड या बिल्कुल आ सकते हैं. इनफैक्ट आई विल शो यू एन एग्जांपल ऑफ सम.
एग्जाम्पल शो करा दें सर।
ओके. रिसेंट के टाइम्स में there hasn't been much questions which have come on it. Lekin, let me open one. Let me show at least from the Bamford's point of view. I'll walk you through Bamford के अंदर क्या questions इसके ऊपर आ चुके हैं. I have to give me a minute. Let me just find the document for a second. Yeah, I know where it is. So in Bamford and Suzanne's Grant's course book, one question, the suggested question is, and Bamford, we take it seriously. I personally take it very seriously, and I tell everybody कि Bamford को आपने seriously लेना है, उसमें से बहुत चीजें आती हैं. Bamford के अंदर एक कोर्स बुक में क्वेश्चन सजेस्ट किया है that most countries have a similar multiplier. Assess this statement. Okay. Now, obviously, question के अंदर there is not much, but actually behind this singular word of multiplier, there is a whole story, which we talked about today. Okay, number one, what is the definition of a multiplier? Well, multiplier is that whenever there is an injection in the economy, that injection creates a continuous transaction of money in the economy, and it creates a much larger impact on the national income. तो इनफैक्ट बल्कि अगर मैं बिल्कुल ही बैम्फर्ड के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से इस पर्टिकुलर वर्ड की अगर मैं डेफिनेशन करूं, विच आई थिंक आई शुड, तो बैम्फर्ड के परस्पेक्टिव से एग्जैक्ट डेफिनेशन ऑफ मल्टीप्लायर इज, लेट मी जस्ट ओपन इट एक सेकंड. इनफैक्ट बैम्फर्ड के अंदर तो मैक्रो इकोनॉमी में सबसे पहला चैप्टर ही जो स्टार्ट होता है वो मल्टीप्लायर के कॉन्सेप्ट से हो जाता है. Alright, so they say the multiplier shows the relationship between the initial change in spending and the final rise in the GDP. I think I did a better job in explaining that multiplier shows how an injection in the economy will circulate in the economy and create an overall impact on the national income. Then you give a formula for the multiplier, which is multiplier is uh, K is equals to change in income over change in injection, or depending on the different sectors of economy, K is equals to 1 divided by 1 minus MPC, or फिर different sectors के साथ how it would be. I would even recommend that you should give an example also कि जैसे मैंने बताया ना how if the multiplier is like 5, then how 100 million की injection will turn into 500 million का national income पे impact. And then we would also like to talk about how the withdrawal, the MPS and MPT and MPM is going to take the money out of the circular flow and it will dilute your multiplier because the money is not getting into transactions and it's coming out of the system. तो उसकी वजह से multiplier की जो value है, if any of these things go up, if any of the withdrawals go up, your value of multiplier will fall and the impact on national income is going to fall. फिर उसके बाद you will be required to give all these formulas, um, two sector का, three sector का, four sector का, which we've talked about. And then in our analysis, because it's about most countries have similar multipliers, but that's not true because different countries have different kind of savings. ये savings MPS को क्या चीजें हैं जो impact करती हैं? तो we talk about MPS को आपकी इकोनॉमी की जो है लोगों की टेंडेंसी, उनका एटीट्यूड, the types of things which are available, types of investment which are available in the economy. You have to talk about that. The more kinds of, um, you know, saving के reasons or the more favor the attitude of the people are in the economy, the more economy is going to save, जिसकी वजह से आपका multiplier खराब हो जाएगा. फिर it depends on your country's taxes. If your country has high taxes, it will hurt your multiplier. If your country has low taxes, then it's going to benefit your multiplier. Different countries have different tax regimes. इसमें डेवलप्ड और डेवलपिंग की तो आप बात कर सकते हो, लेकिन नहीं भी. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल स्वीडन है, स्वीडन का 60% टैक्स रेट है, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ इफ यू टॉक अबाउट मे बी लाइक कुवैत, 0% टैक्सेशन है. पाकिस्तान नियर 40% टैक्सेशन है. तो डिफरेंट कंट्रीज हैव डिफरेंट लेवल ऑफ टैक्सेशन, जिससे आपका मल्टीप्लायर पे इम्पैक्ट आता है. Along with that, even different countries have different tendencies to import. Countries which are highly productive and they make all sorts of goods, their MPM will be low. But then countries which are not producing much and they rely a lot on international trade and import, for them MPM might be high. तो आपने अपने formulas को देना है. So just to get you an idea कि किस तरह का question आ सकता है. फिर evaluation में क्या करना है? Do most all countries have similar? तो मैंने उसी का ही आंसर दिया है कि different countries, high versus low, open versus closed, different economies की different tendencies होती हैं. तो मैंने काउंटर करना है. जहां similarities होंगी वो आपका एनालिसिस पॉइंट है, और इवैल्यूएशन के अंदर यू हैव टू काउंटर के विल ऑल. तो हमने पहले भी ये बात की है कि A2 के अंदर जब हम एसेज लिखते हैं, द काउंटर गोज इन इवैल्यूएशन. ओके. आर्ग्यूमेंट पहले तो पूरी थ्योरी और उसकी एक्सप्लेनेशन नॉलेज एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग में जाती है, और फिर एनालिसिस में कि यस, most countries have similar multiplier. Why? Because it depends on their tendencies on the number of MPS, MPT. If these numbers are similar, automatically countries withdrawals or injection के हिसाब से it will be true. You can draw some diagrams. You can show the multiplier effect using a diagram. For some reason, it doesn't say over here, use a diagram. I would highly recommend that you must use a diagram. कौन सा वाला diagram? Which I just drew over here and showed कि किस तरह से injection has an impact on the national income. बहुत जरूरी है. It makes your case, right? तो जरूरी है. ठीक है. फिर national income के अंदर question like this can come also. Now, this particular question, if we assess, इसके अंदर भी एक certain set of information हो रही है. Assess the extent to which business cycles are caused by changes in investment. अब यहाँ पे इन्वेस्टमेंट का टर्म यूज हो रहा है, बिजनेस साइकिल का टर्म यूज हो रहा है, बट इफ यू थिंक अबाउट इट, यहाँ तो मल्टीप्लायर की कोई बात ही नहीं है. लेकिन इफ यू थिंक अबाउट इट, बिजनेस साइकिल्स की जब हम बात करते हैं, तो वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट अ सिनेरियो जिसके अंदर हम कहते हैं दैट इन विद द पैसेज ऑफ टाइम, इकोनॉमी के अंदर जो आपकी इकोनॉमी है, सॉरी, आपकी जो इकोनॉमी है, उसमें बड़े अप्स एंड डाउन्स होते हैं. You have peak, you have downturn, you have slump or trough, you have upturn. इन सारी के अंदर क्या हो रहा है? Incomes are high, incomes are falling, incomes are really low, incomes are rising, incomes are high. तो ये जब अब इनकम का टर्म आ गया, तो नेशनल इनकम की बात हो गई है ये तो. और साथ ही में जब इन्वेस्टमेंट की बात हो गई है, तो इन्वेस्टमेंट में तो हमने थ्योरीज पढ़ी हैं. एक्सेलरेटर थ्योरी पढ़ी है, हमने एमईसी थ्योरी पढ़ी है. नाउ, हमने इन दोनों थ्योरीज के अंदर हम कहते हैं कि जब इन्वेस्टमेंट होती है, तो उसका इम्पैक्ट नेशनल इनकम पे आता है. अब जब नेशनल इनकम पे इम्पैक्ट आएगा, इफ इन्वेस्टमेंट गोज अप फॉर वट एवर रीजन, it's going to go through the multiplier and it's going to create change in national income. So investment, depending on the theories, इस साइकिल की स्ट्रेंथ को बेसिकली क्वेश्चन में आ जाता है. सो देर इज अ लॉट more. Obviously, I'm not going over this question, Abhi. I'll make you write these essays. But there are various ways in which they can give you the questions. Like if you look at this one, an economy experiences a rise in consumer spending. Evaluate the extent to which the final impact on national income depends upon the size of the multiplier. That's what we're talking about. If economy में consumption बढ़ेगा, तो something will happen to MPC. When MPC changes, different economies में different MPCs हो सकते हैं, जिससे 1 divided by 1 minus MPC से multiplier change हो सकता है. So you have to walk us through this whole thing and talk about the withdrawals and the injections and how the multiplier gets affected. तो ये सारी बातें is parts of like various questions that have come in the past. ये पास्ट पेपर में क्वेश्चन आ चुका है उसकी मार्किंग स्कीम के साथ, इंजेक्शंस एंड विड्रॉल्स एंड हाउ इट विल अफेक्ट द एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड सो ऑन सो फोर्थ. सो प्लेंटी ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. आइडिया क्या है? यू प्रिटी मच राइटिंग एवरीथिंग. ठीक हो गया? ओके. सो लेट मी टेक यू बैक to the essay, to the MCQs, so that we can apply the knowledge that we have done over here, ताकि इसको हम perfect करें कि कैसे thought process होना चाहिए. So let's do some simpler ones. Multiplier की calculations कैसे कर सकते हैं? So for example, you have first question. It says, in a closed economy, okay, in a closed economy with no government, that's a hint. It's a closed economy with no government. So that means how many sector economy are we talking about? Closed है तो that means x minus m नहीं है. No government that means g नहीं है, तो बचा ही दो चीज c plus I. Okay, they're saying उसके बाद an increase in income. What does that mean? An increase in income will cause an increase in consumption equal to 75% of the income. That's a hint. You can take out MPC. MPC is what? For every dollar earned, you are spending 75% of it. So your MPC is 0.75. If our MPC is zero point 0.5, we can find out the multiplier they're asking. 1 divided by 0.75, which is the same thing as 0.25. That's 4. Our economy's multiplier is 4. Any injection you're going to do is going to create a 4 times ka impact on the national economy. Simple sa question hai, easy 1 mark for the pickings. Okay. But the same question can also come in another way, in a graphical format. कि अब वो कह रहे हैं, we've given you the graph, we've given you the income equals to aggregate expenditure model, and we want you to calculate the value of multiplier. So हमें पता है यहाँ पे MPC के साथ तो काम नहीं हो सकता, तो we got to use another formula. The other formula is K is equals to change in income over change in injection. Okay? And that's our second multiplier. Change in income is this, and change in injection is the vertical distance over here, which in our case over here is this. So change in income is ST, and change in injection is VR, and that gives us the answer. ये भी एक तरीका है. We can find out the multiplier. Any questions so far? These are the basic ones that we're dealing with for now.
No, sir.
Okay. Question number
तो
4, very
टेक्निकली आर तो
similar.
वी,
Sorry,
मैं कहता जो डायग्राम है उसमें आर टू वी किया ना, तो वी टू आर तो नहीं हुआ.
R to V, V to R, same thing. Vertical distance measures the same thing.
सही.
The amount is the same, जो भी होगा. So it makes no difference. Similarly, they give you another one. Sometimes they will call it an investment multiplier. ये एक basically आपको hint है कि इन्वेस्टमेंट मल्टीप्लायर होता है जब टू सेक्टर इकोनॉमी की बात करते हैं ना, तो योर रेगुलर मल्टीप्लायर इज कॉल्ड एन इन्वेस्टमेंट मल्टीप्लायर. सेम कॉन्सेप्ट. कॉन्सेप्ट क्या है? हाउ डू यू टेक इट आउट? मल्टीप्लायर का फॉर्मूला है चेंज इन इनकम ओवर चेंज इन इंजेक्शन. लेकिन क्योंकि इंजेक्शन इसमें सिर्फ टू सेक्टर में इन्वेस्टमेंट होता है, तो चेंज इन आई भी लिख लें तो कोई मसले वाली बात नहीं है. तो बेस्ड ऑन दैट this becomes your answer. So simple wahi concept is getting applied over and over again until they decide to complicate things. अब complications कैसे आ सकती है? Let me tell you. ये भी simple सा एक question है, question number 19. If you take a look, थोड़ा सा तुमको throw करने के लिए they've given some extra information. Closed economy है, no government. Two sector, MPC is 0.9, APC is 0.8. Just to throw you off, you know, the formula is K is equals to 1 divided by 1 minus 0.9, which gives you a multiplier of 10. Same concept. Then they can give you a question something like this. ये हमारे पहले 3 लेक्चर्स और आज के लेक्चर दोनों को कंबाइन करके एक सिचुएशन दी है. They've given you a consumption की line. And they're saying the consumption increases from C1 to C2. We can clearly see the starting point, the autonomous portion is the same, only the gradient is changing. When the gradient is changing, we know the slope is changing. And slope is the MPC. What is happening to the slope? Well, the slope is increasing. That means MPC is increasing. And that means in a two sector, the MPS is falling. The withdrawals are going down while the consumption is increasing. और हमने पहले भी ये बात की है कि जब consumption increase होता है, we'll just mathematically look at our formula, right? We'll just mathematically look at our formula. If MPC rises, the denominator becomes smaller. And if MPS falls, sorry, the denominator gets smaller. 1 divided by आप जब ये values करेंगे, automatically K की value बढ़ जाएगी. So the multiplier increases. और gradient ने पहले ही बता दिया है कि MPC is also increasing. फिर कभी कभार they're going to give you a question like this. What would increase the value of multiplier? So we know multiplier is dependent on MPC, MPS, MPT, MPM, the withdrawals and the injection, because we know every time you earn a dollar, you consume some, you save some, you pay some in taxes, and you use some for imported goods. If this goes up, if this goes up, if this goes up, the multiplier goes bad, because if these three things are going up, clearly this needs to fall down, because $1 may at the end of the day there is just so many portions. They're asking what will cause the multiplier's value to rise. So therefore we know कि multiplier की value will rise if this goes up, this falls down, or this falls down. और ये ऐसे के अंदर you are required to suggest, right? So इस case के अंदर the only possibility we have, if there is a reduction in imports, हर डॉलर that you've earned, उसका कितना हिस्सा आप इंपोर्ट में डाल रहे हैं? Every dollar you've earned, उसका कितना हिस्सा आप टैक्स पे कर रहे हैं? Every dollar you earn, उसका कितना हिस्सा आप सेव कर रहे हैं? And every dollar you earn, उसका कितना हिस्सा आप कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं? That's your marginal propensity to save and tax and import. Okay, जी. So these are some of the questions. Let's go back for a second. एक जो मैंने खास छोड़ा था, that was to do with the equations. The first few lectures के अंदर I spoke about these uh, equations. कि हमने एक equation बनाई थी, consumption is A plus BY, और हमने कहा था savings is equals to minus A plus 1 minus BY, where this B was MPC, and when you do 1 minus B, you get MPS, right? इस क्वेश्चन में अगर आप देखें तो उन्होंने आपको सेविंग्स की इक्वेशन दी है, which is savings is equals to minus 100 plus SY. हमें पता है ये जो S यहां लिखा हुआ है ये MPS है. Okay? They've given us the value of multiplier. K is 5. It's a closed economy, no government. That means सिर्फ K is equals to 1 divided by MPS would perfectly work. And we can place in the values. Cross multiply, MPS is 0.2. You just rearrange it. Take MPS over there, bring S5 down. 0.2. The formula becomes minus 100 plus 0.2y. सेविंग्स इज इक्वल्स टू -100, ये तो गलत हो गया। सेविंग्स इज इक्वल्स टू -20, ये गलत हो गया। अब तीन इक्वेशंस कंजम्पशन की बची हैं, तो इसको मैं चेंज कर लेता हूं। -100 becomes +100 and 0.2 becomes 0.8. Why? And therefore, this is how it can be done. So this is just some of our ways जिसके through हमारा equation based question can also be solved. In fact, एक और equation based question भी आया है। A lot of information. Okay? Consumption की equation दी है 100 plus 0.5y. They're asking you what is the value of multiplier. They're also giving you what is investment, what is government expenditure. Too complicated. Simplify. MPC is here. 0.5 is your MPC. K is equals to 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. 0.5 place किया आपने MPC के ऊपर. You get yourself the value of multiplier. No need for such information, right? So a lot of questions in this way comes. Question number 17 is a good one. There are various ways through which you can solve question number 17. Let's try to work the most simplistic way. In a closed economy, no government. What does that mean? That every time you earn an income, you consume some, you save some. Okay? And because it's a two-sector economy, we also know income is equals to consumption plus investment. Two-sector economy mein savings is always equals to investment. So we can actually interchangeably use it. They're giving you investment multiplier is 3. That means K is equals to 3. They're saying by how much will consumption increase if investment increases by 300? So K is equals to change in income over change in injection, which is investment. ये formula है ना investment multiplier का. So investment multiplier is 3 is equals to change in income over 300. Investment कितना सा change हुआ है? 300 से. You cross multiply, you find out incomes में कितना change आया था? 900. Your incomes are changing by 900, of which this is 300. तो consumption कितनी होगी? Naturally 600. So that's how a question like this can get solved, because we know savings is equals to investment, and I use the same two formulas. इसमें एक formula use हो रहा है उसका, because multiplier is already given, so I don't need to use the k equals to 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. तो ये इस तरीके से easily solve हो सकता है. लेकिन जब ये क्वेश्चन को थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लिकेट करते हैं, when they basically tell you, like for example, let me do the complicated, let me just do the, the final multiplier का पूरा concept जो apply हो रहा है. If you take a look at this question, looks very, you know, difficult and all, but it's not. It's very simple, straightforward. What are they talking about? This is what they're saying. I'll show you a graphical image of what they're saying. It's a simple model, okay, where income is equals to consumption plus investment. That means it's a simple two-sector model. Otherwise, they would have said more things. हमें पता है two sector के अंदर this is how an equilibrium is established. Income is equals to C plus I, and this is where the equilibrium is. They're saying Consumption is 2/3 of income. That means your MPC is 2/3 of every dollar is your MPC. So because it's a two sector, 1/3 is what you save for every dollar. Okay. They're telling us the present equilibrium level is 150. And we want to raise the equilibrium to a higher level of equilibrium, somewhere around 180. That means this is the change we want. 30 का change is what we want. So they're saying हमें कितने की investment या injection की requirement है. So when this line jumps up, what happens is we're able to reach. So how much injection do we need? Let's use the multiplier का formula. K is equals to कितना income में change आया when कितना investment में change आया. Let's fill in the numbers. We need multiplier की value, we need income का change, we need investment. Income का change is given. तो यहां मैं इसको रिप्लेस कर देता हूं 30 से. मल्टीप्लायर मैं इससे निकाल लेता हूं k divided by 1 minus 2 over 3. You do it in your calculator or wherever. Be careful how when you do it in calculator, divide Podmas ka rule applies. Multiplier is 3. Let me place in 3 over here. So k is actually 3. Let's rearrange. कितनी investment की जरूरत है? If I invest 10, that 10 will multiply by 3, create the 30 ka effect. So that means this is what we need to inject. Do I need to explain this question? Because this is like the second toughest law that it can become. Equilibrium के point of view से. Same concept applies over and over again. Let me give you another question on this one. I like this one. It's a good question. Similar, yet an edge, something is done here. Question is, the economy income 30,000 million, national income equals 30,000 million, and government is spending about 15,000 million out of this 30,000, and economy is at an equilibrium below full employment level. Okay. Out of every increase of 100, 10 is taken in taxes, 25 is spent on import, and 15 is saved. Basically, what they're doing is, in a very complicated way, they're telling you, जो MPS है, वो 0.15 है, जो MPT है, वो 0.1 है, और जो MPM है, वो 0.25 है. So all these withdrawals, if you add them up, is 0.5 of every dollar. So that means 1 minus all the withdrawals, your MPC is also 0.50. आप इससे multiplier निकाल सकते हैं. K divided by 1 minus MPC, which will be 2. Multiplier, we figured it out. Okay? Full employment level is 50. अगर मैं इसका diagram बनाऊं, so this is how the diagram would look like. The same as what we've just done पीछे. The diagram would be, you would have a 45-degree line, you would have an aggregate expenditure line, you have an equilibrium. They've already told you the equilibrium is at 30,000 million. Okay. जिसके अंदर दिस इज अ फुल फोर सेक्टर इकोनॉमी with your incomes. They want us to inject something in the economy that it goes up to this much. तो हमें पता है कि ये आपका जो potential इन्होंने बताया है, तो this is the amount of injection that we need. Because if we inject this much amount of money, this will go up. Same concept. निकाल लेते हैं. Change in income
सर
is
मेरी
already
अकाउंट की
given.
क्लास स्टार्ट हो गई है, मैं जाऊँ?
Yeah, just 1 second. So change in income is over here, which is 20, and change in injection is something you can calculate, a multiplier. If you inject, it will go through the multiplier and create an impact on national income. So 20 का national income is what you're creating. 2 का multiplier है. 10 की injection is what you require. Options में 10 है नहीं. Now, this was a tricky part. They've already told you the government current spending is 15,000. You have made an addition of 10. That means 25 needs to be injected in the economy and it will create a larger impact. ठीक हो गया? So this is how it would be. Okay. With further, एक दो क्वेश्चंस मुझे और करने दो सो दैट आई कैन कंक्लूड दिस होल थिंग जो इसके अंदर थोड़े से कॉम्प्लिकेटेड और मजीद आ जाते हैं. So let me just take a look at a couple of more, not much, but calculation based एक दो क्वेश्चंस हैं जो कि थोड़े से कॉम्प्लिकेटेड हैं. दे वेरी सिंपल वैसे तो, लेकिन वो कॉम्प्लिकेशन इसलिए आ जाती है बिकॉज वी डोंट नो हाउ टू सॉल्व दैम. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अ क्वेश्चन लाइक दिस वन. इसमें they have given you a consumption function. Same, A plus BY. They've already told you investment is 300. Autonomous है. It's no government and no foreign trade. Okay, so it's a two sector economy. हमें पता है two sector में equilibrium happens when the income का line, the 45-degree line, is equals to aggregate expenditure. Aggregate expenditure is C plus I. तो हम अब वैल्यूज प्लेस करते हैं. C is 180 plus 0.6y and investment is 300. When we solve for it, we bring incomes together. 1 minus 0.6y is equals to 180 plus 300 gives us 480. 0.4y is equals to 480. That means income right now should be at 1200 pounds. Graphically, this is what we are doing. Income की line, aggregate expenditure की line, where you're saying C plus I, इस line की equation है 1200 के ऊपर ये aggregate expenditure का equilibrium आ रहा है. That's how this one is particularly done. Okay? तो ये क्वेश्चंस बहुत अलग अलग तरीकों से ये क्वेश्चंस आ सकते हैं. वन ऑफ माय फेवरेट वन इज दिस वन, क्वेश्चन नंबर 30. इसमें क्या हो रहा है क्वेश्चन नंबर 30 में? इफ यू लुक एट इट, एमईसी थ्योरी का डायग्राम बना हुआ है, इन्वेस्टमेंट इंटरेस्ट रेट के साथ रिएक्टिव है एंड सिर्फ सी की लाइन दी हुई है एंड यू बीन गिवन द 45-degree लाइन. दे आस्क यू इक्विलिब्रियम बताएं इसमें व्हेन इंटरेस्ट रेट इज 4. तो आप क्या जाके क्या करेंगे, अपने पहले डायग्राम में रूलर को यूज करेंगे और नोटिस करेंगे कि जब 4 के ऊपर इंटरेस्ट रेट है तो इकोनॉमी के अंदर जो इंजेक्शन है वो 4 का है. दैट्स योर आई. तो इसका मतलब ये हो गया कि इन द राइट वाला डायग्राम यू ऑलरेडी हैव कंजम्पशन की लाइन. Now, investment क्योंकि autonomous है तो you'll have parallel shift upwards. So, एक, दो, तीन, चार का हमारे पास C plus I आ गया, जिसकी वजह से we have our final equilibrium, which is C plus I, sorry, C plus I, जो कि इस पॉइंट के ऊपर इंटरसेक्शन है. which tells us our economy needs to go at 10 billion. So these are some of the ways through which lots and lots of all sorts of question comes in. Same concept applies. We're going to work on this more. We're going to come back to the MCQs. Next class के अंदर we're going to discuss the inflationary and the deflationary gap, which sort of like sums up this entire national income and determination का chapter. ठीक?
Okay, Allah Hafiz, sir.